Councilmember Eric Garcetti, the chair of the committee, and Councilmember Parks is not expected today, but I do believe we're going to have Councilmember Tom LaBonge. Do we have any general public comment? Okay, we'll close our general public comment. Let's go ahead and take up the first item, please.
Item number 1 is a Department of Transportation report relative to the review of its parking enforcement operations in film zones.
All right. If we can have DOT CEO come on forward. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you again.
Same here.
Thanks for joining us in an early committee meeting.
Thank
So,
you.
if you'll just state your name again for the record. And
My name is Devin Farfan. I work for DOT Parking Enforcement. I'm a captain.
Great. Well, Captain Farfan, I hear some decisions have been made inside DOT for kind of internal organization of dealing with these issues, and you're going to be the point person. Is that correct for
Correct.
all of these? Okay, great. Why don't you walk us through some of the? That's great news, and you get high marks and good reviews from everybody in terms of the work you're doing. I think now that you've been able to be designated as that point person will be helpful for the industry. But why don't you walk us through some of the things in the motion and the meeting that you expect to have with Film LA in the next couple of weeks to
Okay.
implement systems.
Okay, sir. Basically, what we did was we met with FMLA and worked out what some of the issues they were experiencing. We identified one issue that we basically need that last meeting for, which is we actually scheduled it for tomorrow, so we'll be meeting with them tomorrow. And it has to do with the off-street lots, and basically the problem was identifying which vehicles were approved for the permit because there was also the vehicles parked. So that meeting tomorrow should square that away where we all understand what the process is going to be. But other than that, we've resolved all the parking citations that were derived because of the off-street parking lot issue. We also worked out with our training any issues that we had. We made sure our staff was trained, so all that's been updated. The placard issue's been resolved, and we also have provided a contact list for FMLA if they have any field issues, where they can identify the captains or contact them immediately so that we
Great.
can resolve them that day.
Excellent. I had breakfast with some location scouts just to kind of hear what challenges they faced earlier this week. And I'm glad you bring up the off-street lots. Now, I know that from neighborhood to neighborhood, sometimes we have different agreements within the neighborhood, kind of informal, semi-binding, I would say, agreements that have been reached between negotiating with community members and the city. But one of the areas in which we had done this was in my own district in Echo Park. The location scouts, one or two of them were both saying, we often have looked to use those lots, but under the agreement that exists, and we can understand when the lot gets completely closed down, the ones that are behind Sunset to the south in the main commercial area of Echo Park. But oftentimes we just wanted to put a catering truck or a small thing and during the day, and half the lot was open. If we were to change any of those agreements or come up with a policy that would both protect the businesses and also enable filming to occur and to be able to have some of their equipment there. I mean, I'm interested in maybe developing with DOT, and maybe we could flag this as something to discuss with Film LA as well, that there would be at least a minimum, like that, in especially the big lots, a quarter of it could be taken, or even an eighth of it. I mean, they were talking about really small footprints, but they really were not allowed to take any, and that's not on DOT. I mean, some of that's been negotiated, for instance, by my council office. So I just want this to be a living, breathing agreement that we make sure still protects the neighborhood businesses so they don't get shut out from their customer parking, but that we keep a very vibrant and important industry able to work here in the city of LA. Do you know of other places in which there's rules of different rules for the off-street parking lots that vary according to the neighborhood?
No, I don't know off the top hand, but we off the part of DOT that governs off-street lots will be at that meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll definitely bring it up in our discussion.
Okay, yeah, let's see if we can at least identify if there's any, besides Echo Park, if there's other places that have covenants, agreements that prohibit any use for filming. And then if there are, we can maybe look at developing a good policy that would have some fair percentage available if there are shoots that need that. as well. And then we're going to be looking at implementation. I'd love, I think that the CLA recommended that DOT report back every 6 months on this, on the implementation, is that correct? So, whatever things become kind of permanent policies or policy recommendations, feel free to bring those sooner than the 6 months, but we'll just kind of do a check-in and see how things are going a couple times a year, and that way we can keep things going. But this is a good development, and I appreciate DOT stepping up, and I think you'll do a lot of good and be a popular person in the industry with this connection, let's hope. So thank you for your attention to this, and is there anything else you want to bring up in terms
No,
of
sir.
matters? Okay.
All right.
Great.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. We'll note and file the DOT report. Appreciate it. All right. CLA, you want to add anything? You're good? CAO? Yeah. All right. Let's take number 2 then.
Item number 2 is a CLA and CAO verbal report relative to the status of the citywide film task force and opportunities related to filming at various locations in order to encourage filming in Los Angeles.
All right.
John Wickham with the CLA's office. A few years ago, in response to your Ugly Betty motion, and by the way, that show was canceled a year after
I know. I
they
tell
left
everybody,
the
look,
city of
you
Los
leave
Angeles.
Los Angeles and your show got canceled. It's just,
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
But in response to that motion, the council formed the city film task force, and it's an opportunity for all of the city departments and all of the elements of the entertainment industry and others who are interested to sit down and talk about issues that affect the industry. We use it as an educational tool so that city departments can explain to the industry how the city works, and the industry can explain to the city how they work. And it's been a great forum to highlight issues that we weren't aware of, help them understand how we do business, and help them to just be more comfortable with knowing who the city family is and how to work with us.
Yeah.
So we've done it for 3 years now. CAO was the lead the first year. CLA was lead last year, and CAO is lead again this year. I'm sure they're looking to send it back to us
Right,
in the next few months.
It's a fair ping pong game, I think.
Exactly.
How have, in the motion also, we looked at specifically a couple issues with the county side of both the craft services, cooking on trucks, and the filming on beaches, which continues to recur. Have we been able to make contact with any steady people at the county or state level to bring these groups together and try to resolve these issues?
Yes, I'm with the CAO. I would contact Martin Zimmerman, who is the ACO of the county, who's our counterpart, and also holding a filming meeting task force with the industry. He was very gracious and was very willing to accept an invitation to come and participate in our task force, and he's also extended an invitation to us to be part of theirs, so we can make filming a little bit easier in Los Angeles. We also contact Mr. Terrence. He's the director of the Bureau of Specialized Surveillance at the LA County Public Health. This is the person who's in charge of the craft services portion, the food issues. Also was very gracious and is more than willing to come and participate with us. So we have built a team that is going to take the filming to explore opportunities to encourage filming in Los Angeles.
So with the latter, with the issues that have come up with the craft services and cooking on food trucks, is there a willingness to, I know there's been a change in enforcement policy in the recent year. Would he be willing to come and testify here and kind of work through, after you have some meetings, to say how can we resolve this and what can we do to move forward on that? What's your sense on that issue? Are they
My
aware of
sense
it
is
and
that
working on it?
they see it as that some of the things that they have applied don't actually apply to the film industry, and it's somewhat misunderstood. So yes, they are more than willing to come and speak with us.
Okay, I'd love to do that and work with the industry, bring some of the folks here that have experienced the enforcement end of things, because they may think that that's not happening, and maybe some people have overreacted, but other times there's people who have reacted because there's been, enforcement action that's been taken, and it's really, I was on Paramount lot yesterday and talking with folks again about just the impact that's had, and yet another headache, and that's even inside a lot that's completely contained and controlled. That's a different thing than street filming. although it occurs in location shoots as well. So we'd love to invite him after you kind of have your first meeting and with either his task force or vice versa with ours. Okay.
That would be great.
And on the beach side, were you able to have any initial discussions about filming on the beaches?
On the beaches, it's really under the purview of Mr. Zimmerman as well, because this is where the discussions go on having to do with the beaches. And it's a little more complicated because there are so many entities that control an area. The sidewalk is controlled by the city, the beach is controlled, and so there are various things that we need to get together and speak about, but he was more than willing to explore all ideas of how we can make that a little bit easier.
And I know, since we've moved to the Film LA model from the EIDC model, it's difficult to there's nothing quasi-governmental about it. So when we look at, we have this problem with the Los Angeles River where the water is federal, I think the sides are the county, the walkways are the city. I mean, we have, I think, 4 different jurisdictions all simultaneous over the river, and yet we've worked out some ways to kind of move forward, whether it's homeless encampments, whether it's revitalization of the river. I wouldn't say that we want to set up necessarily an authority a la LASA or Housing Authority or anything like that had formal governmental responsibility across city and county, but I do think that we want to think customer out, and how is it that we can figure out a way so that someone wants to film on the beach and it's the same person from the city and the same person in the county working together and making it pretty seamless. And I think Film LA is probably the glue that can connect that, but we should explore what sort of model will do that rather than just kind of checking in with the problems. If they want us to find the person on the city side, we can do that for street services or rec and parks. For their side, we should find out who that point person is, because that was also another thing that the location managers that I had breakfast with mentioned. Again, it's just a very difficult jurisdictional thing. And everything from even, they want to do a car commercial and the lifeguards have an exclusive agreement with Ford trucks, and so no truck besides a Ford truck can be on the beach, according to some of the enforcers. So.
Yeah. There was an example the industry provided last year, I think it was, where the scene involved the actor throwing a cell phone into the ocean, and it was on a fishing pole so they could reel it back out after they were done. But that simple shoot required lifeguards. It required county beaches and harbors. It required city park staff. It required LAPD. I think there was a firefighter that was required on the set, and there were Film LA monitors. So I think the shoot for that simple scene of tossing a cell phone into the ocean required 10 different, governmental staff people just to make sure everything was okay.
Amazing.
That probably could have been simplified.
Yeah, I don't think we would have killed any wildlife with that phone, but you never know. All right. Okay, well, thank you. Why don't we extend that invitation then to our county counterparts, to Martin and to Mr. Zimmerman on number 2, and in the meantime, we will, I guess, note and file this. We'll look forward to scheduling that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to item 3 next.
Item number 3 is a DWP report relative to a pricing structure for filming power nodes that have been installed at the Old Zoo, DWP John Ferraro Building, and City Hall.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. Marvin Moon, Nearly Water and Power System.
Good to see you.
Basically, if you recall, at the suggestion of this committee, the department took the initiative to install 5 film nodes as a demo, working with Film LA and General Services and Parks and Recs and others. And 2 of them are here, 2 at JFB and 1 at City Hall, at Griffith Park. And then the question came up as a learning curve, how do you charge for these things?
Right.
And so what we did was we put together the film nodes at the City Hall here and at Water and Power don't have meters on them, so the suggestion was to flat rate them based on an assumed consumption of a half-loaded facility. So we ran it through our rate calculator, and it came out to a daily suggested rate of $350 for the City Hall nodes and $250 for the John Ferraro Building. The Griffith Park one is a little different because it does have a meter. It's kind of a freestanding service that's just used for film nodes. And we have kind of I'd call it a kludge method of billing. When somebody uses it, we do a read of the meter, then we read it after they're done, and treat it almost like a 1 or 2 day customer, and then run a special bill through. I think on the long term, that's not a sustainable model, because if it's used a lot, right now it's hardly used at all.
Right.
But our suggestion would be that Parks and Rec take it over the meter and handle it the same way as the other film nodes as a flat rate, daily rated thing.
Why do you recommend them doing, instead of you being the point of contact and doing the same thing? I mean, you're pretty confident, obviously, that 350 on a, what was it, 600 amp node?
Yeah, the bigger one.
And the 400, and 250 on the 400 amp node covers it. Would that hold? I mean, I don't know what size the one is in Griffith Park, but
Yeah, the Griffith Park one is smaller, so their rate would be lower if they flat rated that one. But we're pretty confident it's a very conservative approach and very
but
defensible.
walk me through I mean, knowing how this city is, adding a new responsibility to somebody else who then has to calculate out of I assume if Rec and Parks were taking this over, you'd be talking about them being billed for the power from you, and then they're reimbursed from the chute?
Well, it would just be like City Hall, where if somebody uses the node for the day, it'd be booked through Film LA, and the fee just goes straight to general services.
Oh, it does. And then, so this becomes part of the general services bill?
Yeah, it's just part of the flat rated thing that's ranged through the permitting process.
And, again, I'm just trying to think from the customer out. Let's say we start building more of these, and they're in different jurisdictions. Some are in GSD places, some are Rec and Park, some are street services. I can see some departments doing better than other ones. I don't know which ones those would be. I just know that sometimes we don't have complete consistency. Does DWP have the capacity to be able to, or the best capacity to be able to do this kind of, I forget what, Kluge billing you said?
Well, no, the idea is that every node would have a designated flat rate fee based on its size.
Right.
And then it would be all handled through the permitting process. So when the...
So it'll all go to Film LA either way?
Yes,
Okay.
through Film LA. So when they just collect the fee, it forwards to whoever the
Gotcha.
owner of the service is.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So what role, when you're saying that, then it's really about who Film LA would give the
Give you
The check to.
The clearinghouse, yeah. Give the check to the owner
to
of
Rec
the
and Parks,
facility.
to
Yeah.
GSD, or to whoever? Okay.
Correct.
And so is that, then that's the model you'd use it over at for our building, is that they'll be
Yes.
paying you, essentially? Okay.
Right. If they use our node, Film LA would send us a check for the use of that node.
What is our capacity, do you think, sorry, before we go to that, you said that the ones in City Hall and John Farrow have been used, but primarily right now, the ones at Old Zoo have been used for non-filming, but, shows and other things, theater.
That's correct.
But not any filming thus far?
I'm not aware of any filming activity. The usage has been Shakespeare in the Park and the Haunted Hayride.
Uh-huh, okay. And if we were to expand and say that we wanted to find, 10 more locations, if this, as we suspect is useful, popular, helps us, our bottom line, would we have the capacity to be able to do that? What do we have to undertake to build these nodes out, or were they already pre-existing?
The two issues mainly are financial, because they're very expensive and the payback just isn't there as far as recovering them through usage. The second thing is ownership, and it kind of gets to the Griffith Park thing. Someone taking responsibility for the facility, keeping it up and maintained, and working with that Film LA as it's being used.
What do they cost to build?
They were typically running about $125,000 each.
Okay. And so when you're talking about their usage, it would be, I don't know, depending on how much filming we had, which would not be a daily occurrence, it could be 10, 15 years in terms of the payback, is that?
It'd be way out there. This fee does not include any sort of payback for the facility. It's just electric usage.
Okay. Well, unless it's in the sense that, I assume that when Rec and Parks gets their bill, they're going to have increased power consumption at a place like the Old Zoo that will be reflected on their bill that they get from DWP.
Right, they would get a bill for the meter usage.
So that'll come back into the DWP system somehow. I mean, there'll be some payback. It'll just be in a sea of ratepayers.
Yeah, someone would have to pick up a bill to
Right.
get the facility built, in addition to the regular service connections.
So these three at 125,000 were pilot funded by DWP?
That's correct.
Okay.
We did 5.
5. What were the other two locations?
Well, there's 2 at City Hall,
Okay.
2 at
And 2 for-
Water and Power Building, and 1 Griffith Park.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, I'm interested in talking to the industry in terms of once we get this going, maybe 6 months from now, we'll look at what sort of filming we have and figure out if there's a way, even if it is, again, a loss leader. This is something, you know, I know we have to look at rate increases and everything that's going on, but again, DWP playing a role of making, of being an economic stimulus for the city. Sometimes it's worth those costs, so we'll look at that, but why don't we keep where we are, and with this set pricing, let's go ahead and move forward the daily rate. So I will I will ask the CLA and CAO also to work with Rec and Parks to see whether they can take responsibility on the power node, but we can probably implement the set fee today, I would assume, at Rec and Parks, because that's a billing issue from DWP, correct?
It's metered, you know, but we could flat rate that one as well.
I mean, we can keep it metered, but it sounds like that's a difficult,
It's labor
difficult for you.
intensive.
So why don't you recommend to us, and we can hold it, you know, what that rate should be? You know, is it 250, is it 350, is it 450? I don't know how big the node is, but let us know, and so we can just include that and begin to standardize those rates, at least for the first 5.
All right.
And work with Film LA. Okay, so I don't know if this is in council today? Okay, all right, so before this comes to council, we can just work that out in the meantime.
Oh,
Is it
I have the amount, it's $150.75.
If you were to
So
flat rate.
if you flat rate Griffith Park, it'd be $150.75.
All right, well, why don't
Or you
we...
could make it 150.
Why don't we discount the 75 cents? That's our big subsidy for the film industry today.
There you
Why don't we move forward then, proposing the daily rate of 150 then, and we'll ask CLA to work with Rec and Parks to see if we can look at the responsibility, but in the meantime, we'll impose that pricing structure and see if we can get some use of these. Okay?
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. Well, on item number 3, Mr. Sachs, if you'd like to come forward.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs.
Good morning.
Very quickly, because your item on your agenda says, towards the end, with emphasis on providing simple, efficient approach that provides power and reasonable, affordable rates. Well, if you don't have any usage, you're not being very efficient. And what about other locations? I mean, you pull permits for filming. Are these the 3 locations within the city? I mean, I know the city hall is used. The gentleman mentioned that the zoo is not used that often, and I don't know about the John Ferraro building, but based on the number of permits pulled in the city for filming, wouldn't you want to put these power nodes where you do most of the filming? That being said, what about power nodes for being efficient at the library? Didn't the council and the DWP agree that the library would now be responsible for paying the DWP for its usage of electricity and water? Yes. That was one of the budget agreements made when you balanced the budget, what, a year and a half ago? 2 years ago? A year ago. So why not put a power node in the libraries? Because you know you get usage every there, why not charge them flat rate? Because then the public doesn't pay twice, it only pays once. What about at the harbor? Don't they do filming at the harbor? Why not use power node, a flat rate at the harbor? What about even, and I ought to wash my mouth out for this, but what about the County Board of Supervisors? They do filming there, why not put a power node there? What about at Metro headquarters? Doesn't Metro use utilities? All these public buildings that are allowed to vote as government agencies when you have a business improvement district, don't they deserve to be looked at as users of electricity and have the same kind of benefits? Because basically, the bill goes to the public one way or the other, but shouldn't the public have an opportunity to pay less for these buildings that are being used the most often? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sachs. And these were developed based on where there is high volume filming, and most buildings actually have plugins inside the building. This is for the exteriors, when usually we had folks that would bring generators out, so that's the difference there. All right, that will close this meeting. We already had public comment before, Mr. Sachs. Do you want to say something? You want me to reopen it? Would you like a minute maybe of time? Why don't you put a minute on the clock for, I'll reopen public comment.
And excuse me, Mr. Chair, on item number 3, the disposition in terms of the rate.
Why don't we move forward? I think it was note and file, but I'd like to see if we can amend. And is the authority to do so with the DWP itself, or do we have authority to mandate that from here? I guess, should we just the 150, just the addition of the 150, why don't we just amend that, and we'll note and file, and we'll have DWP take care of it, so it doesn't have to go through a formal legislative brouhaha. Okay, thanks. Mr. Sachs.
Thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. I was wondering if anybody had happened to look at the New York Times from the 22nd of January, how the United States lost out on iPhone work. It has a great graphic in it, and I suggest you take a look at it. It shows the largest employees, the changeover from 1960 to 2010. And if you look down the list of these employers, you'll notice that in the 1960s, maybe even in the 70s, of the ones listed, all of them are in manufacturing of some sort. And if you look at the list in 2010, all are service-oriented. So how do you propose to make these jobs appear when you're no longer providing manufacturing positions, or the manufacturing positions are no longer being provided, and services is the key? You know, it's yesterday's newspaper, expansion of LAX, 40,000 jobs. Can you get an update on the number of jobs at LAX right now in the height of the redevelopment there that's going on, the rebuilding, the re-expansion, all this work that's going on? Can you give the public an idea of what's going on? Because this is an economic committee. Do you think the public should have an idea of what they're getting, a bang for their buck? This, again, you hear the governor of California talk about the high-speed rail, but you don't have a base when you lose all these manufacturing jobs, and in addition, all the jobs that go along with providing the goods, the materials used in manufacturing the final product. They're not in California anymore. None of these businesses, of the top 20, maybe 2 of them are located in California. GM, no. Ford, no. U.S. Steel, no. Esso, Exxon, I don't think so. Bethlehem Steel, no. Now, one after one, all of them disappear. And so your promises and your discussions about jobs, Walmart, UPS, McDonald's, Kroger.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Thank you. Appreciate it. And as in terms of the airport jobs, yes, the public does deserve, and it's regularly reported in the TCT committee how many jobs there are, and that's available for the public. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sachs. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.